Welcome to the Wing Space Podcast, a place to take up space, a space for you to settle in, sit back, relax, and focus a little bit on health, wellness, faith, family, and this crazy thing called life.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the Wing Space Podcast, a place to take up space. We are rounding out our short little series on the 6 components of wellness today as we talk about physical wellness and incorporate a little bit about environmental wellness in this as well. So if you've been following along and listening to the other episodes, you know that I have taken information from both the National Institutes of Health as well as the University of New Hampshire. They have a really great overall wellness page there. And so I just want to talk to you a little bit about what it means in a broader perspective than what you might think with regards to physical health. So when we talk about physical health, we're talking about your physical body, obviously, and what it needs for health and healing and energy, kind of this overall idea of caring for the machine that is your body. And then when we're considering environmental wellness, we're considering the environment in which that body is living, right? So how are we contributing to and engaging in the space around us for safety, accessibility, and sustainability? Briefly, I just want to talk about environmental wellness because that is not any less important, but there's fewer components to that. So when we talk about environmental wellness, we're looking at, are you aware of kind of the Earth's natural resources? I feel like that's a really big thing, but just kind of being mindful of, what you are consuming in terms of what's here on the earth and conserving energy, turning lights off, not letting water run too much, right? Because we have an impact on the environment in which we live. Can you recycle? Can you, that whole, when I was a kid, it was it was 3 R's: reuse, replace, recycle, I think. And so how can you be mindful of doing that and just enjoying the space around you and the natural setting in a safe way, right? Reducing pollution, reducing your footprint on the earth, reducing the way that you engage with the spaces around you. And it is important for us to consider, little things like, turning off lights or not letting water run when we're brushing our teeth. And, if all of us did that, just imagine the small impact that it would have on the earth around us, because obviously our physical body is living on this physical earth, and we have to consider that the resources are not endless, right? So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you are probably going to get tired of me moving all around, but gosh, I'm recording this at the end of the day on Friday, and I'm a little antsier than what I expected I would be when I pressed record. So sorry if I get you dizzy with all this moving around. So as we engage in the spaces around us, we have to be mindful of our consumption, of our usage, of the way that we're treating this earth. For many people, that's bigger than what they might consider. And I would say that taking care of our physical body is a whole lot bigger than what people give it credit for. So again, I said, physical wellness is when we know our body and we give it what it needs for health and healing and energy. So we're feeding and fueling, moving and resting our body. I've said that before. I'll say it again. 4 components: feed, fuel, move, rest our body. That's what our body needs. So, you might ask yourself, am I eating foods that I enjoy? Am I staying hydrated? Am I fueling my body well? Am I on a consistent sleep schedule? Am I waking tired? Am I getting enough rest? Am I moving my body? When we look at physical health, we're looking at not only our body, but how we engage with others. So obviously we have to look at sexual health, and are we making safe decisions? Are we consuming things that are, let's just be honest, poisoning our body, right? Whether it's cigarettes or e-cigarettes or vapes, any kind of nicotine. Unfortunately, caffeine kind of falls into that because of the way that it interacts with our body. Obviously, alcohol and drugs, over-the-counter drugs, supplements, anything that we're putting in our body that doesn't grow from the earth, right? We have to consider how it's going to impact our body. And then just generally taking care of ourselves, covering our nose when we cough or sneeze. Are we doing flu shots? Are you doing a well check? Things that we might do for our car. You've heard me say it before, our body is like a machine. So if we treat our body like we treat a car, some of us might be broken down on the side of the road. I get it. But we're gonna change the spark plugs. We're gonna change the oil. We're gonna put gas in it. We're gonna take care of our car. Why aren't we doing that for ourselves? So I want to talk a little bit about things to think about as you are or are not feeding, fueling, moving, and resting your body. So I'm going to use the notes that I have here from the University of New Hampshire and just kind of talk a little bit through these components that they think are important to explore, and I think are important too. Not always things that we think about when we look at physical wellness. And I'll just give you the caveat that this might be a little bit longer of an episode than normal and what the other ones have been. But it's really important to think about. We've already talked about environmental wellness and how we engage in the world around us. Are we safe and comfortable in the space that we're in? Do we have too much? Are we consuming too much? Do we explore and engage in the world around us, walking in nature and enjoying this world? So I want you to consider things such as alcohol consumption, alcohol and drug consumption, right? I'm not going to pretend that, it's easy to say we're not going to drink, but I would ask you to consider, in general, what are you consuming? What substances are you consuming? And gosh, we could look at it from lots of different perspectives. Is it just alcohol we have to be worried about? But is it also caffeinated drinks? Is it also, sugary juices and things like that? Because the reality is, when we're drinking those other things, we're not drinking water, and our body is made up of more water than it is anything else. And once we are dehydrated, once we are thirsty or have a headache, we're already dehydrated. So most of us kind of live in this right under the cusp of hydrated to dehydrated. And then by the time we get really dehydrated, it's bad. And we have to be cognizant of that. So how can we replace some of those other drinks, other beverages with water? Can we say no to, hey, do you want a drink? Can we say no in a restaurant if we get a soda and it's free refills? Saying no to the big giant refill and getting a water instead. Just making a smart swap. Have a soda, have a beer, have a glass of wine, but then maybe not the refill. Being aware of what we're also eating. So alcohol is one of those things where it lowers our inhibitions, and when we lower our inhibitions, we're more likely to overeat. It's just what it is, right? We are more likely to get some snacks or order dessert or hang around the bar where the snacks are and things like that. And so we just have to be mindful of what we're drinking, because then it impacts what we're eating. And I'm not really even going to dive into illegal substances, because let's just be honest, they're illegal and you should not consume them. If you are consuming them, I would encourage you and I would invite you to seek professional assistance in helping to reduce and then stop your consumption of those things. But when we're looking at, the beverages that we're consuming, we have to know what we're drinking. We have to know what we're consuming. We have to know the amount of whatever it is that we have. I was just reading the other day on a Facebook group that I'm in that this person had gone to the ER because they were having like heart attack like symptoms, and they had grabbed a brand energy drink off the, out of the refrigerated section at a store, and it was a brand that they typically drink. But this particular brand was like the booster caffeine version. And so it was the flavor that they were interested in, but they didn't realize that it had so much more caffeine. And, I think they said they had had some coffee in the morning, and then this was like that midday pick-me-up type drink. And they were basically overloaded on caffeine. And these reactions that they were having was a reaction to the amount of caffeine that they had put into their body. So we really do have to be mindful of how much caffeine we're drinking. These energy drinks that are out there now have so much caffeine, and we're having those on top of sodas and tea coffee, and then we're just overloading our system on caffeine. So we do have to be really mindful. Our brain interacts with caffeine in the same way that it does other drugs. So we have to be mindful of the way that it's going to impact our brain. Obviously, we could probably do, and maybe we will do a whole episode on, safe alcohol consumption, and we can kind of really dive into it. But really, I want you to think about beverages in general. What are you drinking? And can you replace one of those non-H2O beverages with some water? On that note, grab some water and take a sip. As I was reaching for that water, I was reminded that my throat feels just a little bit scratchy today, and I think it's because I've had a slew of clients, and I've been doing a lot of talking today. It's the end of the week, so it's a little scratchy, but we're also right in the midst of cold and flu season. So here's my plug for all of the things related to cold and flu season. Vaccinate or don't vaccinate, we're not going to get into that debate. You do what feels right for you and for your health in conjunction with conversations with your doctor. But there's lots of things we can do that can be helpful. If you're sick, stay home. If you know somebody is sick, let them rest. Don't go near them. Avoid that close contact. About a month or so ago, my husband had COVID, and he slept up in the guest bedroom for a week because I didn't want any parts of that, right? Ain't nobody got time for COVID. So, avoiding that close contact and doing what you can to keep yourself well. Staying away, like I said, from others if you're sick. We have sick leave for a reason. If you don't have sick leave, obviously your employer likely does not want you coming in and infecting the whole place. So making sure that you're resting, you're feeding your body well when you are sick, you're increasing your hydration. I remember when my kids were little, the doctor told me that when they have a fever, and there was some kind of a ratio that I don't recall now because they're teenagers and, let's be honest, we just don't treat them the same. But, for every degree of fever, they needed X number of additional ounces of fluids because the fever dehydrates us. So, obviously that old adage of, chicken soup for the soul when you're ill and things like that, there's meaning behind it. I can't tell you how many times I've seen, coughing and sneezing. We don't cover our mouths. We don't wash our hands. Hand sanitizer can be your friend. Stepping away and washing your hands when you're, you're messing with this general, nose, mouth region, and being mindful of your own health and the health of other people really is what it is, right? Because I can care for myself and my own body, but I can't always determine what I'm being exposed to, but I can try, right? I remember at one point, I think it was my mom maybe ended up with COVID a couple years ago, and she had said, I haven't gone anywhere except, and I think the grocery store was one of those places she had gone, and I was like, well, Mom, there you go. You touch the railing or the cart handle, and then you don't think about it and you scratch your nose, whatever, you've just gotten yourself sick, not even thinking about it because someone came into the store and they were sick. Sometimes we don't know that we're sick. Sometimes we chalk it up to those good old allergies. It was just something I ate. But we can do a lot by just washing our hands, using hand sanitizer, keeping our hands out of our mouth, don't chew on things that shouldn't be chewed on, and really just being mindful of, how do we care for ourselves? Now, I mentioned kind of this idea of beverages. When we feed and fuel our body, we're doing a lot for cold and flu prevention. When our body is well, when our body is fed well and fueled well, it's able to work better in terms of fighting off those germs. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to pretend to be one. I'm not an infectious disease expert. But the reality is, if I am in a season where I am go, 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 I'm busy, I'm not sleeping, maybe I've thrown my exercise out the window, I forget to fill up my water, so I just grab a soda instead, I'm eating fast food or I'm not eating well, I'm probably going to end up sick at the end of that season. It just is. Because I'm not feeding and fueling, moving and resting my body the way that it needs to be. So nutrition is vitally important. When we're talking about, cold and flu, illness prevention, we can feed and fuel our body for health. And there's tons of podcasts maybe tons is the wrong word, but eventually there'll be tons. There are many podcasts with our nutrition, certified nutrition specialist, Tracy Pritchard. So I'm not going to go into all of the logistics about nutrition, but the fact of the matter is the better we fuel and feed our body, the better it will engage in the world around you. Plain and simple. Your brain and mind will work more clearly when you are feeding your brain and your mind what your brain needs, right? I was talking to her the other day about brain food, and she said if you're working with somebody who's having a lot of brain fog and concentration issues and things like that, encourage them to start with breakfast, and maybe it's going to be a smoothie. You got protein, you got berries, you got leafy greens. Those are the things that are going to be important for feeding and fueling your body first thing in the morning to get you kick-started. So, just an idea, right? What can I start in the morning that has protein, leafy greens, and berries? If you're not a smoothie person, be creative. I'm sitting here thinking, recently I've seen a lot of things where you like add cottage cheese to stuff for extra protein. So I'm thinking like eggs scrambled with some cottage cheese, throw in some spinach, and then a side of, mixed berries. Boom, you've got it, right? So how can I start my day? How can I feed my brain? Same thing is true for our heart, our lungs, all of our internal organs. How are we feeding our body so that they are doing what they can do to maximize, not optimize, because optimizing is a whole other thing, but to maximize their efficiency so that it can feed and fuel us well. I am currently training for a half marathon, and I have the marathon penciled in because we'll see what happens with my training calendar here in the next couple weeks, but I'm definitely going to get the half done. And there's been a week or two in this training where I have not fueled well, so I did not drink enough water during the week. So by the time I hit my race day or my training day, I could already tell that I was going to be really thirsty going into it. There was one particular Saturday that the night before, kind of life just happened and I didn't eat what I had anticipated eating, and I was hungry. I did not have enough energy to do what I needed to do. So I'm not saying that all of you are training for a marathon and you need to feed and fuel your body as you would if you were training for a marathon, but the reality is, and Tracy has said this before in her podcast, if you eat a big salad with lots of leafy greens and some good healthy fats, and you've got some protein on there, you're going to feel better and differently than if you went to a fast food joint and got a double cheeseburger and some fries and a big soda. You're going to feel different. So I would ask you to just consider being mindful. Hey, I just had this meal. How am I feeling? Oh, I just had this different kind of meal. How am I feeling differently, right? Because the way that we feed and fuel our body is really, really important to maximize our body's potential. And when we're talking about maximizing potential, we cannot adequately exercise our body if we're not feeding and fueling it. Movement is really important. Again, I'll tell you, feeding, fueling, moving, resting your body. Super, super important. And there's lots of reasons why physical movement and exercise are so important. And I want to spend a little bit of extra time talking about this piece of it because I think sometimes this is the first thing that gets put on the back burner. That and sleep. Those are the two things that tend to get put on the back burner. And movement is so important for so many things. I want you to think about that old song, right? The ankle bone, the foot bone's connected to the ankle bone's connected to the leg bone, the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone, right? So we know about how our bones are connected. But I want you to think about, and this is not an anatomy lesson, I promise, but what holds our bones together? All the connective tissue, the tendons, the ligaments, the cartilage, the muscle. When those things are strong, right? So when we're lifting weights, doing strength training, we are strengthening all of the connective tissue that holds our bones and our structure together. So as that process naturally becomes harder, we lose muscle mass, we lose bone density. It's just a part of the aging process. So for those of you who are within my cohort, the 40-something-ish, maybe a little younger and into older, It's really important to strength train. It's really important to continue to use our muscles, not only so that we have strong connective tissue around our bones, which protects our bones from breaking and fractures, but it also helps us to be able to engage in functional living. For instance, squats, right? How many times do you squat over the course of the day? And you might think, I don't squat. Well, you sit down in chairs and you stand up from chairs. You sit in your car and you stand up from a car. You sit on the toilet and you stand up from a toilet. All of those are the movement of a squat, right? So if you can add some weight to that squat, then you can strengthen those muscles even more, which means getting up and getting down is going to be easier for you. Same thing is true for anything that's like overhead, right? So if you're going to do some kind of a chest press, overhead press, that's mimicking lifting plates from the counter to put into a cabinet, reaching something in a high shelf, right? Those are the exercises that we need. And I could go on and on about how different exercises mimic functional living, activities that we engage in every day. How many of you, and I'll admit I'm one of them, I remember a couple years ago, I was like doing the shimmy shake, right? Pulling my pants up when I was getting dressed, and I like tweaked a muscle in my back. I remember one time I sneezed and I tweaked something in my neck. I mean, come on, how embarrassing that was, right? But sometimes we say, oh, my back is killing me. I didn't do anything, but my back hurts. Well, because our back is not strong enough, if we overuse it, sometimes ergonomically, right, physiologically, we're not engaging the right way. We're bending at the back instead of bending at the knees, or we're really twisting and tweaking to reach for something instead of turning our whole body. We do that. Sometimes we'll do that with driving, right? We want to reach behind us and grab something, and we end up pulling something instead of just waiting until we're finished driving and we can actually completely turn around or reach in from the side. So movement is not about having a beach body. Movement is not about having, being bikini ready and being a weightlifter. It's about being ready for life. It's about being ready to engage in what this world has, right? So not only does it help strengthen your bones and your muscles and your joints and all of that connective tissue, but movement also decreases your chances of heart disease and diabetes and high blood pressure, because cardiovascularly, right, when we're engaging in cardio exercise, we're engaging the heart, we're engaging all of the organs that are required to keep us moving, and it helps them to function better. We also know, and here's where I can sit on my little mental health soapbox, when we exercise, our brain releases endorphins. Those are the feel-good hormones at a similar rate to the effects of taking an antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication. Hear me say this. I'm not suggesting that you can exercise and stop taking your meds. Do not stop taking your meds if you're taking meds. Talk to your doctor. What I am telling you is that nobody regrets and feels bad after you exercise. Your body might be sore, but most people don't go to the gym, have a kick butt workout, and walk out and say, why did I do that? Most people walk out and they feel great. They feel good because our feel-good hormones, our endorphins, are increased and they are pumping into our body. And that feels good. That helps lower depression, lower anxiety and increase our mood so that depression is not so prevalent. And it's also an incredible stress reliever. When we experience trauma and stress, it creates energy in our body. I've had this experience before where all of a sudden I feel like there's electrical currents running through my body. Now, some of you might say, well, yeah, you have restless leg syndrome or something. Maybe. But I also know that I have energy that needs to be expelled. So I either need to go for a walk, or I need to jump on the treadmill tonight, or I need to, lift those weights that I skipped this morning. I need to do something to physically exert energy so that I can get that energy out. Then it reduces my stress. And overall, it prevents positive well-being. The other thing that we know about exercise, which is something that's different, not so long ago, there was an idea we did not make new brain cells, and that we lost brain cells, the brain cells died, and that's what caused Alzheimer's. We now know that it's not actually what causes Alzheimer's, and that we do, in fact, make new brain cells. When we make new brain cells, we make them at a certain rate per hour, we'll say. When we exercise, we are making 2 to 3 times more brain cells in that given period of time. The other thing we know is that when a cell is born, we'll say, it gets filled with energy. And then it divides, and then it divides again, and then it divides again, and then it divides again. That's just basic cellular science. So if I am super, super depressed about something, every brain cell that gets created during that time has depression energy in it. And then it multiplies, right? So it gets worse over time. If I go for a workout, let's say I go for a walk with a friend and we're having a great conversation and we're exercising, we got some sweat dripping, we're laughing, we're talking, we're reminiscing, we're having a great time. Now, not only are my brain cells being filled with good, positive energy, but I have 2 to 3 times as many brain cells now filled with good, positive energy, which means if I have 1 brain cell of depression energy and 3 brain cells of happy energy, when those multiply, right, now I have 2 for depression and 6 for happy. So over time, exercising creates more brain cells that have good positive energy in them, which overall promotes positive well-being, lower depression, lower anxiety. Super, super important. Now, I'm not going to say that as there's an average number of hours you should get a week, because there's lots of different science behind lots of different things. What I will say is that I would invite you to move your body every day. Move your body every day. There's this phenomenon called active couch potatoes. And those are people that they work out for 45 minutes to an hour and then they sit at their desk all day long. They drive in their car home and then they sit on the couch all evening. And they might have had a really killer workout in the morning, but they have 1,500 steps, right? Because they are not moving throughout the day. So I would encourage you to get up and to move, to walk around. When you're talking on the phone with your friend, yes, I'm old school and I've got the typical phone here, but who goes like this, right? I don't even know the generations. I don't know. You're holding a cell phone like this. That just seems weird. I'm going to take my pinky finger and my thumb and make a phone when I'm walking around and I'm talking to a friend. Why sit on the couch for 35, 40-minute conversation? Walk up and down the driveway. Walk up and down the front porch. I've been known to walk circles in my living room. Just move your body. I saw this thing today that there's a Norwegian company that has created an office chair, a desk chair on wheels that has what's it called? A gear shift thing and a battery, so that you could take it out of your office and like wheel around the office for up to 15 minutes. And I thought to myself, have we really come that far with technology that we can't get up from our desk and walk down the hallway to talk to a coworker? We have to just wheel ourselves. We're going to end up overweight, unhealthy from sedentary lives. So move. Move your body, strengthen your muscles, lift weights, talk to your doctor if you have concerns about that. We have to move our bodies. It's vital, because the old adage of if you don't use it, you lose it is so, so true. We have to move our bodies. It doesn't have to hurt and it doesn't have to be miserable. So find what makes you happy. I just talked about training for a half marathon, and some of you might have thought I would not even run from a bear, right? Much less choose to go run a half marathon. But you might love to go do a dance class or a Zumba class. Me, I've done Zumba once in my life, and it should have been an episode of America's Funniest Home Videos. It was not pretty. But some of you are like, I would much rather go do Zumba and dance. So do that. Do that thing. Ride the bike. Take the walk. Go swimming, go hiking. Whatever it is that makes you happy and brings you joy, do that thing. For sure. Do that thing. So when we talk about what brings you joy, I'm going to give you a quick minute to reset your environment. We're going to have a brief conversation about sexual health. So if you need to monitor your audience, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Are you a yogi in Southern Maryland looking for a place to practice on Thursday mornings? Look no further than Gentle Yoga with Lori Bruce at Hope and Healing in Leonardtown. A certified yoga therapist, Lori brings over 2 decades of yoga training and teaching to her classes. Gentle Yoga with Lori is suitable for all levels. Join us in person or tune in from home, as all Thursday morning classes will be available virtually. Space is limited, so reserve your spot today at loribruceyoga.com/schedule.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today we are finishing up our conversation on physical health. We've already talked about feeding and fueling our body, hydration, what we're consuming in terms of beverages, flu and cold prevention, and movement. So we're going to jump into a brief conversation about sexual health. So again, I'm not a physical, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a sexual health expert, but we're going to talk briefly about this. And I gave you the warning already. If you want to not listen to this while you've got little kiddos in the car, I'm not going to get too graphic or anything, but I don't want you to have to tell your 4-year-old what sexual health means, right? So, we know that we are sexual beings. It's how we were created. It's how we were made. It's what our bodies do. But we have to be able to be comfortable in that body and comfortable in that space. So I would just encourage you to consider what good sexual health means to you, right? It's going to be different for everyone. Everyone has their own opinions about that. And I would just encourage you to consider what that means for you, how you express yourself, how you engage with others. And the bottom line for me for today, again, we're not going to go into a lot of detail, is just to consider, are the choices that you're making healthy and safe? There are, ways to prevent disease. There's ways to prevent unwanted pregnancy. And I would encourage you to talk to your doctor about those things and to engage in more information gathering so that you can make good choices when it comes to sexual health. Because what we don't want to happen is that we don't want you to end up with some kind of an illness or a disease that impacts your ability to do the other things we've already talked about, which is moving your body and, the other forms of wellness, social wellness, engaging with friends and family, being able to work, all of those things. Because we know that if you were to not have good sexual health, whether it's because of poor relationships, like physical relationships, because of sexual trauma, because of any kind of diseases, then that's going to impact your overall wellness. We know that. So being able to care for your body, all of the parts, in a healthy and safe way. Honoring your body, honoring your no, being able to stand up for yourself and say no, and being able to accept someone else's no. Being able to seek consent, honor that consent or non, and to give consent or not. Really looking at, is this okay? Am I honoring my body? Am I honoring my values and my morals? Or am I doing something that goes beyond that? Because when we do things that put us in those ethical, moral dilemmas, it impacts our overall wellness. So again, not engaging in activities that are beyond what feels safe for you from a ethical, moral values standpoint. Obviously, looking at things like protection and STD prevention is really, really important. And obviously, if you have concerns about your sexual health or what that sexual health might mean for you, you can always talk to your doctor. You could talk to a therapist. You could, ladies, you could talk to your gynecologist. It's important to consider, though, because it is a part of your body that is important when we talk about health. Now, when we've talked about sleep in the past, follow me as I segue here. We've talked about how the only thing that should happen in your bed is sleep and sex, okay? I don't want people watching hours and hours of TV. I don't want the TV to be, or the bed to be the the coffee table where we're playing games or we're reading for hours or anything like that. So the only thing we're doing in our bed is sleeping and having sex. And you might say, yeah, I don't sleep, right? So again, I would encourage you, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this for this podcast because I've gone into sleep at length in other podcasts, and we can link some of those other podcasts, not only for sleep, but nutrition in our show notes. Everyone has to sleep. And some people say, oh, I'm good with 4 or 5 hours. Okay. You're surviving on 4 or 5 hours, but you're not thriving. And in order to actually take care of your body, you need to thrive. And so I would just encourage you to consider how you might develop an evening routine that sets you up for sleep, which also might mean that you need a morning routine. And we all have routines. You might be the person going, yeah, I don't do routines. We all do. Here's how you can tell whether you have a routine or not. When you get in the shower, for the next time you get in the shower, go through your shower process the way that you normally would. For me, I usually get in, I wet and wash my face, I shampoo my hair, put conditioner on. If I'm going to scrub, exfoliate or something, I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to wash my body, and I'm going to rinse out the conditioner. Okay? It's kind of a routine I've got. Maybe I'm going to do it differently tomorrow, right? And it's going to throw me off. Instead of washing my face and my hair, I'm going to wash my body first. And then why would I put conditioner on before I put on shampoo, right? Some of you might say, well, why would you wash your face before you wash your hair? Because it's going to come down. Good point, right? So you might say I don't have routines, but we all have routines because we all have these habits, right? Are you a put your socks on and then your pants, or do you put your pants on and then your socks, right? I've heard that debate before. So what routines can I put into place in the evening? Turning off screens, turning off lights, and kind of calming the environment, making sure that it's a cool temperature to sleep, so we're not getting overheated and woken up in the middle of the night. What's our environment like? Is it super loud? Can we make it a more calming environment? How can I create this environment similar to what we do for our babies? When babies are born, right, they get lullaby music, they get a soft nightlight, everybody gets quiet in the house. Could someone do that for me? I can do that for me. I can create an environment, create a routine that helps my body know that it's time to now go to sleep, so that then I can wake up in the morning and be ready with maybe a morning routine that sets me up for the day. And we know that these routines can also be very helpful in the last component I want to talk about, and that's stress. I warned you this was going to be a longer episode than normal, and the reality is there's a lot to do when we talk about physical health. There's a lot that we have to manage, and stress is one of those things. We respond physically, we respond emotionally, we respond mentally to stimulus around us. We sometimes don't like change, and so that causes a stress. Sometimes we're not prepared for what's coming at us or to us or around us. There can be good stress. However, good stress is still stress. So we have to consider good stress, bad stress, the good, bad, the ugly, and the impact that it has on our body. You heard me say that when we're under stress or we experience a trauma, our body creates energy in order to combat that thing. And then what happens is that we have this energy and we don't know what to do with it. And that's when people end up getting headaches, or they get nausea, or they have other GI upset. They can't think straight. They're super tired. Sometimes people, when they're really stressed, they get a ton of energy because it's our body's way of creating the hormones that it needs in order to manage the stress. And sometimes we get flooded with those hormones, and that's what causes some of those somatic complaints, those physical complaints that come when we're stressed. And then we aren't as equipped to handle the next stressor that comes our way. So it's super, super important to consider how we are managing our physical body to be able to engage in the world around us when it comes to stress relief. I'm looking at this list of stress ideas from the University of New Hampshire, and I'm thinking stress is a podcast episode of its own. We've done several on sleep. We've done several on nutrition. And I think stress is one for itself because stress is something that all of us experience. It's the management of sleep that is different from one person to another. So, ton of information for today. I appreciate you sticking around for as long as you did. I would encourage you to consider how you are feeding, fueling, moving, and resting your body so that your body can engage in the world in the way that it needs to, so that you are thriving instead of just surviving. So thanks for listening. As always, you can send me your input, your ideas. If you have any thoughts on this episode, let me know. We're going to dive into some fun other topics for the rest of season 4. And I would love to hear your input and ideas. You can email me, Jennifer@hopehealingtherapy.com. You can also send us a DM through Facebook or Instagram. So glad you joined us, and I hope you have a great day.